Russia has begun testing NATO's patience with a new wave of attacks across Europe. According to a Telegraph report, Europe's weapons industry is facing a new and increasingly complex security threat. A series of fires, explosions, and suspected arson attacks at facilities linked to Ukraine's military supply chain has raised allegations of a coordinated Russian sabotage campaign. The accusations are serious. What investigators are now examining is whether apparently separate incidents across Europe could actually be connected. The latest case has emerged in Estonia. 3 Latvian citizens have been detained over a suspected arson attack targeting a facility belonging to Milrem Robotics. The Tallinn-based company develops unmanned military systems and has supplied equipment to Ukraine. The fire broke out during the night of August 14th into August 15th. Estonian authorities are investigating whether the blaze was deliberate and whether Russia could be behind it. That question is particularly sensitive because Estonia sits directly on NATO's eastern flank. And for the Baltic states, the threat from Moscow is not simply theoretical. The region has remained on high alert since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But the Estonia case is not standing alone. Earlier this year, a fire severely damaged a Czech factory producing drones and thermal imaging equipment for Ukraine. 4 suspects were detained as investigators examined possible Russian involvement. Lithuania has also brought charges against 6 people over an alleged attempt to set fire to a factory supplying radio wave scanning equipment to Kyiv. And then there are 2 more recent incidents that have attracted attention. On August 10th, an explosion occurred at an IMCO facility in Bulgaria. The company is one of the country's major private arms manufacturers and produces 155mm artillery ammunition, including ammunition supplied to Ukraine. The initial fire reportedly began in a truck near a warehouse. Just 3 days later, another incident occurred in Italy. An explosion was reported at a KNDS Ammo Italia facility in Colleferro near Rome. The fire reportedly broke out in an area involved in gunpowder processing. The exact cause remains unclear, and that distinction is important. Not every fire at a weapons factory is automatically sabotage. Industrial facilities handle explosives, ammunition, chemicals, and other dangerous materials. Accidents can and do happen. Italian and Bulgarian authorities have therefore been cautious about publicly attributing these incidents to Russia. But European security officials are increasingly concerned about a broader pattern. The alleged strategy is based on what analysts call plausible deniability. Instead of sending Russian operatives directly into another country, Moscow is accused of using intermediaries. Those intermediaries can then recruit people locally, including individuals connected to criminal networks. The recruits may receive individual assignments without knowing who is ultimately behind them. Some investigations have alleged that communication takes place through encrypted messaging platforms, including Telegram, and payments can reportedly be made through cryptocurrency. The objective? Carry out disruption while making it difficult to establish a direct link to the Kremlin. That would allow Moscow to apply pressure without necessarily triggering a major military response. And that brings us to one of the biggest concerns for NATO, Article 5. The alliance's collective defense clause says an armed attack against one NATO member is considered an attack against all. But what happens when the attack is not a missile strike? What happens when a warehouse burns? When a factory is disrupted? When infrastructure is damaged? Or when an attack is carried out by criminals who appear to be acting independently? That ambiguity creates a gray zone, and Russia is accused of deliberately operating inside it. The alleged objective is not necessarily to launch a direct confrontation with NATO. It could instead be to test how far Moscow can go before European governments respond collectively. Another potential objective is to disrupt the flow of weapons to Ukraine. European countries have become critical suppliers of artillery, drones, ammunition, and other military equipment to Kyiv. Any disruption to those production lines could affect Ukraine's ability to sustain its war effort. But there is another target beyond the factories themselves: European political unity. Eastern NATO members, particularly Poland and the Baltic states, have consistently warned that Russia represents a serious and immediate security threat. Countries further west have sometimes been more cautious about publicly attributing individual incidents to Moscow. That difference matters, because if European governments disagree over who is responsible, responding collectively becomes much harder. And that is precisely why officials are increasingly discussing Russian activity in terms of hybrid warfare. The battlefield is no longer limited to Ukraine. It can involve cyber attacks, disinformation, election interference, undersea infrastructure, energy networks, and now, potentially, Europe's defense industrial base. For Ukraine, the stakes are particularly high. The country relies heavily on European production lines to replenish ammunition and military equipment. If those facilities are disrupted even temporarily, the impact could eventually reach the battlefield. For Russia, meanwhile, sabotage offers a very different tool from conventional military power. It is cheaper, it can be deniable, and it can exploit existing criminal networks and political divisions. But again, there is a crucial caveat. European investigators have linked Russia to some previous sabotage operations, but the evidence and level of attribution vary from case to case. The fires in Bulgaria and Italy, for example, have not been publicly established as Russian operations, and Russia has repeatedly rejected accusations that it is conducting such campaigns. So investigators now face a difficult task. They must determine which incidents were accidents, which were deliberate acts of arson, and if sabotage is confirmed, who ordered it. Because the real question is not whether Europe is experiencing suspicious fires and attacks. It is whether these incidents form part of a coordinated campaign. A campaign designed to disrupt weapons production, pressure governments, test NATO's response, and weaken support for Ukraine. If that assessment is eventually confirmed, Europe could be facing a new front in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, one fought not with tanks crossing borders, but with fires inside factories, covert networks, criminal intermediaries, and attacks designed to remain just below the threshold of open war. And that may be exactly what makes this threat so difficult to stop.
If you like this video, then like, share, and subscribe to Mirror Now.